So in this video, I'm going to talk about exactly why most people never get fluent in Spanish. If you don't know me, my name is Hamid. I'm 16 and fluent in 4 languages. I became a polyglot at 13 years old after getting conversationally fluent in Spanish in 120 hours. And now I help obsessed Spanish learners reach conversational fluency using my simple methods. Here's my quick before and after, as well as a before and after of a client I had.
Podré para mejorar mi español cuando no tengo mucho tiempo libre para estudiar español. Quiero aprender español. Pues para mí me gusta jugar el aeroclip para aprender español, así que ya lo sé la palabra del aeroclip.
So we're going to go through 5 different points in this video. We're going to talk about, first I'm going to tell you a quick story of a comment as well as my own story. Then we're going to talk about the any benefit mindset / content consumption. And then we're going to talk about solutions, exactly how to not be like the person who never gets fluent in Spanish. And then we're going to end off with a free gift if you make it to the end, okay? So let's start. When I first got fluent, okay, in Spanish, it was 3 years ago, after the summer of 2022, okay? Now, prior to then, there's a guy in my class who had gotten pretty good grades in Spanish, at least better than me, and I was a nerd, so I really wanted better grades. So he started doing Duolingo and stuff, and it became like a trend in the class to sort of learn Spanish or learn, the third language that you have to study in school, at least in Sweden, in your free time. And so I did a ton of research on different ways, and eventually I found an app called Language Transfer, which really sort of blew my mind, and it gave me the initial motivation to start not only studying Spanish, but also get fluent. And so one part of this story that I don't mention all the time is that as soon as I found out about Language Transfer, what I did was I told my friend, of course, because it was like a trend in the class, and my friend wanted to gatekeep it. And so what would happen is me and my friend would study Spanish together and listen to Language Transfer together. And so at this point, I had seen many YouTubers, and what had happened was I saw different YouTubers get fluent extremely quickly. And so I made it my mission to sort of find out what is the method, what is like the way to learn Spanish as quickly as possible. And so I'd seen these YouTubers like Shaoma and Language Lords get fluent in like 30 days or something crazy. And so I was like, and so I thought like, okay, there's something here. And so I took those concepts and methods and I sort of, tested them out, invented them a little, and eventually came down to a few methods that me and my friend were going to decide to lock in on during the summer of 2022. What we should realize is that my friend didn't actually do it. Just before the summer, me and my friend had decided to dedicate 1 hour a day, every single day, to learning Spanish during the summer. And, well, first 10 days of the summer, he basically quit. He called me and was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. And so I was disappointed because I wanted to do it for my friend, but nonetheless, I still continued. And so I implemented the frameworks that I got from these YouTubers and that I sort of invented. And by the end of it, after 120 hours of total studying, including Language Transfer and then the 1 hour a day, I was able to have conversations with natives pretty much no problem. That was 3 years ago. And so now I've created this channel. I think I started like a year ago. And I make these videos teaching my exact frameworks that I did during the summer 2022 because at first, I didn't really realize it, but when I looked at like the facts and data, apparently 120 hours of studying is much faster than like the average learner. And actually, I asked AI to analyze my transformation, which is the one that you saw in the beginning. And according to AI, I saved around 200 to 250 hours of time spent studying compared to the average learner. And so then, of course, I did coaching with many people. For example, the client that I showed you had gotten fluent. As someone who's gotten fluent in Spanish and also helped other people get fluent in Spanish, I've seen a pattern with people who never reach fluency. And here's where I want to talk about the story of the comment I saw. So in a pretty recent video that I made, I think it was called like my exact plan to get fluent in the summer or something like that. Basically, it was a video where I talked about the plan of getting fluent in the summer, okay? A few thousand people saw it and there was a comment there, okay? And this is a comment I've seen on other one of my videos, specifically on the videos where I talk about like the exact plan of how I do things, okay? And it was that it like mentioned like a timestamp of like 17 minutes into the video. And then it says, this is where the steps begin, seriously. And then someone replied and said like, thank you, I couldn't even reach 30 seconds in or something. This sort of personality type of a viewer is the exact sort of reason of why most people don't get fluent. I'm not bashing anyone, don't hate any commenter, but this is something I've noticed in every single person who doesn't get fluent, okay, which is sadly most people. I titled this video 90% of people, but it's just most people, right? There's no statistic. You and me probably know most people who want to get fluent in Spanish, they don't, okay? And so these next points are going to talk about the exact sort of intrinsic reasoning of why most people never get fluent in Spanish. And it all starts with what I like to call the any benefit mindset, and it's all connected to content consumption. Me and my friend, when we were, having the plan of getting fluent in Spanish, we can sort of use this as like a difference thing, okay? We know that in this summer, I started and I got Fluent and he didn't, okay? So we'll separate it from me and we'll call my friend Bob, okay? That is not his name, okay? So me and Bob. Now, what is the difference between me and Bob? Well, here's where it comes to, okay? So I was way more obsessed than my friend Bob. You know, when I start these videos, I always say I help obsessed Spanish learners reach conversational fluency. Specifically, obsessed Spanish learners. Because the people who aren't obsessed are the people like Bob. He's still my friend, and so of course, I'm not trying to hate on Bob, okay? Those people are their own type of people, right? But that's not what this channel is about. This channel is specifically for people who are obsessed with the goal of learning Spanish. Because here's the simple thing, okay? 90% of people don't actually, when they say they want to reach fluency, they don't actually care because in reality, they have 10 other hobbies that they're trying to pursue at the same time. You know, a lot of people I see, they say they're learning 3 languages at the same time. You're not going to make any progress, okay? It all comes down to a concept of essentialism, okay? Here's the thing. Bob was also trying to start a business. And he was also trying to start his fitness journey. And he was also trying to lock in on grades. And he was also learning Spanish. This is what Bob's sort of focus on each hobby was, okay? It was several things at once, okay? Me, I was only obsessed on one goal. It was learning Spanish. And so that means that I will reach much further because I'm more obsessed on one singular thing. Obsession can be simplified into directed focus into one thing, okay? And so here's the difference. If 90% of people are here, they're learning 3 languages at once, then they're trying to start the fitness journey, then they're trying to start a new business, then they're trying to get good grades, then they're trying to get that promotion. When you have so many different things that you're trying to achieve, you end up making no progress in all of them. Because the way humans work is, we are much better at just locking in on one thing than we are at diverting our attention to many things, okay? In fact, there's been studies on this. This idea of multitasking is so wrong, okay? Who do you think is going to make more progress, okay? The person who spends 1 hour on one task and then another hour on the other task, or someone who does 10 minutes of one task, 10 minutes of the other task, 10 minutes of one task, 10 minutes of the other one, and then just hops back and forth between both of them. Even if they put the same amount of time and effort, the person who put 1 hour in on one thing and then another hour on the other thing is going to make more progress because he's diverted all of his cognitive abilities into one distinct thing. AKA, he obsessed on one thing for 1 hour and then obsessed on another thing for another hour. Now, what this looks like as a big part of our life is when we are spending our time to learn something, it should always be on one thing. We should always be obsessed because those are the people who make the progress. Because people like this who have several things at once that they're doing, 8 different things that you're doing, they never make progress because they're never going to be able to lock in on one piece of thing, one piece of like content, okay? So that's the any benefit sort of mindset, right? It's this thing of like, oh, I can start doing fitness. Okay, let me do that. Oh, I can start learning Spanish. Let me do that. Oh, I can learn French. Okay, let me do that. Oh, I can get grades. Okay, let me do that. It's this thing of like picking up breadcrumbs everywhere. So you have like 5 paths of breadcrumbs. The person who's like Bob takes the first breadcrumb, and takes just one breadcrumb from each path. But that person doesn't get the most calories. The person who takes one path of breadcrumbs but goes all the way in that path will reach the actual piece of bread and will then subsequently get the most amount of calories, right? And so it's this idea of like, if you want to reach far in one area, you have to cut everything else out, okay? And that basically means obsession. That's why this channel is for people who are here, not here. And another trait of people who are like Bob, who are on this side, is content consumption for the sake of content consumption. There's 2 different people who consume content on the internet, okay? There's the people who are seeking fun, and there's people who are seeking education. When I was watching these videos of language lords, okay, me and my friend both watched that video. Here's the difference between me and him, okay? When I was watching that video, in my mind, I was thinking, how do I implement this in my own life, okay? And my friend, Bob, he was thinking, wow, this is such a cool video. The difference here is the person who is seeking education is the person who will implement the tips that are being given, the advice, and subsequently will be the one who reaches fluency. But most people, like Bob, watch it for the sake of just watching it. They watch the video for the sake of content consumption, not for the sake of learning. It's like the difference between the guy who watches a Mr. Beast video for the sake of watching the Mr. Beast video and the guy who watches the Mr. Beast video in order to analyze his like video structure, right? Do you sort of see that difference, okay? Even though it's the same fundamental video, the mindset is different. And this is where I talk about that comment. Because those comments where they're like, oh, skip to this part where the actual value starts. They're never going to get fluent. Hopefully, if you're watching this, you haven't just skipped to this point of the video. You've actually watched through everything. Because the person who just chases breadcrumbs, who just like, where are the Spanish tips? Oh, this is the Spanish tip? Okay. They never implement the tip because they never watched the previous 10 minutes where I talk about why the tip is important, right? If I give you a framework, me explaining to you why it matters is 90% of it. Because why would someone implement the framework if they don't know why it works, if they don't even know who I am? Because if I just started this video and started talking about me and Bob, you're going to be like, who are you? You're going to be like, what are you talking about? Who are you? Have you gotten fluent? And so that's why I start every single one of my videos by telling you who I am and showing you my transformation. Because if I don't, then I'm appealing for fun, right? Then I'm appealing for just the 5 quick tips, okay? That's why all of my videos are long. If you're watching these videos, I assume you're not here because you just like the way I talk, right? Maybe that's a bonus. But hopefully, if you're watching these videos, you're here for education, not fun, okay? The person who is here for education is the person who will get fluent. The person who is here for fun will never get fluent, ever. Because it matters in the way that they implement it, okay? Watching content does not affect your learning at all. Implementation does. In fact, the language transfer course, it literally talks about how you must pause and think about it for yourself. You have to implement, okay? Imagine the people who just watch the course and just had it playing in the background. They're never going to get fluent, okay? And so that is the any benefit mindset and content consumption. So any benefit mindset, picking up small breadcrumbs instead of following the breadcrumb trail to reach the bread, okay? You want to follow the breadcrumb trail to reach the bread because then you'll get the most calories rather than taking small breadcrumbs from each path, okay? And in this context, watching every single YouTube video on how to get fluent and finding the tips instead of watching the full video, right? It's the people who watch content for the sake of fun. And that leads me actually to my next point, which is entertainment over education. Another reason why most people never reach fluency. When it comes to any material ever in terms of learning Spanish, it will always fall into 3 categories in terms of content, okay? Entertainment, edutainment, and education, okay? So let's define these. Entertainment is basically like fun content, okay? Think Mr. Beast, right? Think about like games and stuff, okay? Now, edutainment falls into the category of like Duolingo and like 90% of Spanish content online. Most videos online for learning Spanish, it's always like edutainment. So edutainment is kind of like, imagine like a Mr. Beastified video where there's hyper editing and there's like whoosh and then there's like an explosion and then it's like B-roll of some Spanish people speaking and like a guy is talking about in the background and there's like background music, okay? It's this type of content where it's education wrapped in entertainment, okay? A person is talking and he's giving education, but that education has distractions on it where it's like there's like a boom here and then there's a spinning Spanish flag here, okay? And then there's education. And education is like pure like content. It's kind of like, it's basically exactly like these videos, right? So there are minimal cuts, there's no music, and it's purely educational, right? It's all about learning, okay? And so most of the content online that is talking about how to get fluent in Spanish and like teaching Spanish, 90% of them all fall into the entertainment/edutainment category, okay? All of those videos are all sort of fun videos to watch with like fast editing and stuff. And the thing is, these videos get the most views because they're the most entertaining, which means they reach the widest audience, okay? That's why the videos I make that are purely educational, you can see they don't get as many views as those videos. Of course they don't, right? Because they're purely educational. These videos are just me sitting here in front of a presentation teaching you the exact frameworks, okay? These are the type of videos that have low retention because most people don't sit here and watch these videos. Most people are distracted, right? But that's exactly why most people never get fluent. And think about what learning Spanish is all about. It's all about learning. It's all about education. In fact, Spanish in general, learning something in general is all about education. And anything that is not about education when it comes to learning is fundamentally a distraction. Imagine this, okay? You're in a classroom and you're learning about history. Imagine the teacher had background music playing and then all of a sudden there was like a candle that lit and then like it like sparked up a flame. And then like 5 seconds later, there was like an oh sound in the background when the teacher said something funny. And then there was like a laughing track in the background. Do you think that class would get good grades? No, because it's not prioritizing what is actually supposed to happen, which is learning, which is education, right? And so education is all about videos where it's all like minimal cuts, minimal editing, no music, and it's just like purely about learning, okay? Which is exactly what I make when I make these videos, okay? These videos are purely educational. And so now let's talk about solutions, okay? We know that the person who never gets fluent in Spanish, aka 90% of people, are the people who have the any benefit mindset. So they watch any video at all if they think that will help them, and they'll take small breadcrumbs from everything, but will never take one path, okay? And then it's also the people who watch content just for the sake of content, literally just watching for fun. And that goes into the next point, which is they take entertainment and slash edutainment over education, okay? So now let's talk about how do you not beat that person? How do we not be like, for example, Bob, like I mentioned? How do we be like the person who will get fluent? Well, it firstly starts with seeking educational content. So videos like these, okay? I'm not saying that just to promote my content. I'm just saying, okay, you can watch videos that are edutainment, okay? And they have some benefit. But again, that's into the any benefit mindset, okay? So we know that it all comes down to seeking educational content, okay? But on top of that, it comes down to the concepts that we talked about earlier, okay? So the first is obsession, okay? So here we have 3 paths, okay? 3 paths. The idea here is instead of being the person who takes one crumb from each path, we should be the type of person who takes one path but takes the entire way, right? We go deep into that path. Which one got the most? This guy who took 1, 2, 3 small little crumbs, or the person who took one crumb but then a bigger crumb and then a bigger crumb until he gets the whole loaf? This guy is the guy who becomes successful in learning Spanish. This guy is the guy who gives up, who never gets fluent, okay? So the first step is we want to be like this person, okay? We want to be the person who picks one thing and dedicates ourselves to that one path. So that means obsession. That means basically the exact viewer that this channel is for, an obsessed Spanish learner, okay? So we want to be an obsessed Spanish learner, meaning we don't want to be the person who is doing one thing and then doing another thing and then doing another thing and then doing another thing. No, we want to be the person who is doing one thing, only Spanish. This is exactly how my client Eduardo got fluent as well. He had one thing on his mind all the time. It was learning Spanish. This is what I did during the summer. During the summer, I literally did one thing. I studied Spanish. That's all I did. All I thought about. My entire life revolved around learning Spanish. And so, of course, not only are we going to get fluent faster than most people, but we're going to start learning faster than most people. And along with this, what's interesting is the breadcrumbs are the entertainment pieces of content. And the more deep that you go in, the more education it becomes. So the first one is entertainment. Think about like my 30-day Spanish transformation, and it's a video with tons of editing, and it's not even like educational, right? So it's entertainment, okay? That's what like most people start with. That's what I started with as well. I was watching these YouTube videos. And then I went deeper into the rabbit hole. I watched videos like edutainment. So that's like a tier list of language learning apps or the best methods to learn Spanish. And then it's like a video of lots of editing, right? That's like these types of videos, okay? Now, these types of videos, the deep videos, are like videos like these where someone sits down and presents like facts and just teaches you, almost like you do in a classroom, okay? What's interesting is these videos are also shorter and have more editing, whereas these educational videos have less editing and are much longer, okay? Hence why you get more bang for your buck because it's bigger, right? Education can be defined as not entertaining, effective. Someone who is in edutainment or entertainment will never beat the guy who is purely in education. And that's why when you see these videos of people who make entertaining videos of their sort of methods, they never have proof of other people getting fluent. Whereas I have like actual proof of not only someone getting fluent, but also reviews and all that, right? I'm not trying to sell you on something here. I'm just proving the concept, okay? And so in summary, as a solution, we should be the person seeking education and therefore not seeking entertainment and therefore don't need to skip around. We want to be the person who doesn't have the any benefit mindset and is actually obsessed over one clear goal, meaning we want to be the person who doesn't go from video to video trying to find the tips and then never implements the tips. We want to be the person who watches one video but is actually a high quality video and watches the entirety of the video and actually pays attention. okay? And lastly, you want to be the person who watches content for the sake of learning, not for the sake of entertainment, okay? And so that is exactly why 90% of people never reach fluency when it comes to learning Spanish, and also exactly how to not be like that type of person, okay? Look at like the view count of this video. 90% of those people came to watch this video because they had an any benefit mindset and they just watched for the sake of content consumption. They were here for entertainment. They got dissatisfied when they found education, so then they left. Which is why, like most people who watch my videos, the spike looks like this. They click on the video and then a majority just leave directly when they realize that this video isn't an entertainment video. And so if you are watching this video, if you have made it to this point, be proud of yourself, because you are the type of person who this channel is for. You are the type of person seeking education, not entertainment. And that means you are the type of person who reached fluency. And so finally, to end off, we're going to talk about the free gift. So you can check the description to grab my free, easy to use Cognate cheat sheet in order to unlock thousands of Spanish words instantly. No email needed. It is literally just my gift for you. You click on the link and boom, you get the PDF of thousands of Spanish words that you can instantly unlock with just a few rules, okay? And that's just my gift for you for reaching the end of this video and for actually staying here for education. Okay, imagine there's a comment on this video like, skip to this part to get the free gift. Like, bro. Remember that these videos are just small parts from my program. And so if you want to implement these frameworks and finally learn Spanish in a clear and structured way, then you can check the description to join my program. But act now, because I don't know when the price may increase. So if you want to lock in your price now, then you can check the description. Otherwise, I would really appreciate it if you shared this video with someone who you think would benefit and who is actually here for education. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed and stay humble.